Felt what if Reinhard had brought Subaru along with Felt? Chapter 1. Felt, you better let me and Big Bro leave right now, you stupid jerk. Reinhard, Lady Felt, please. Such language is not appropriate for a Lady Felt. Screw proper language. You have nitrogen monoxide right to lecture US after kidnapping US, do ya? Subaru, huh? When the blonde-haired girl turned her gaze toward him, the black-haired boy, already a bit nervous, scratched his left cheek nervously while sweating lightly. They were in the middle of an extremely fancy dining room. One of the newcomers to that enormous mansion, he sat beside the girl, both looking toward the figure sitting across from them, Reinhard van Astria. The story was both simple and complicated. Contradictory? A little, but only if you looked at it from the outside, where the black-haired boy Natsuki Subaru had saved the lives of Felt, Ram, the girl's adoptive grandfather, and Amelia, a silver-haired half-elf from the notorious assassin Elsa Granhirt, known as the Bow Hunter, who was eventually stopped by Reinhard during a fight that destroyed the loot house with everyone still inside. Something unusual that had happened in a very strange way, but for Subaru? No. Summarizing his story up to that point, Subaru had gone out to buy supplies for yet another night locked in his room when he was suddenly summoned to another world, under the illusion that it would be a typical fantasy isekai story. There he met Amelia, who saved him from an attack by 3 thugs which Felt in that loop had ignored, and decided to help her recover her stolen item, her insignia, which led them to the loot house. That's when the unthinkable happened for the first time. Natsuki Subaru died. He was murdered for the first time, stabbed from behind by the assassin. He was in shock, but somehow overcame it by convincing himself it was just an illusion. Running back to the loot house, thinking Amelia, who at that time introduced herself as Satella, was still in danger, but it wasn't that simple. He ended up meeting Ram and Felt, trying to trade his cell phone for the insignia. Then Elsa appeared. He won the negotiation, foolishly revealed his true intentions. And just like Rome and Felt, he was cruelly killed by the sadistic assassin. That led to his third loop, where he ended up dying by accident from his perspective, because of his own mistake. He had chased after Amelia, calling her by a false name without realizing it. In doing so, he cornered her into an alley and was stabbed in the back by the same trio of thugs from the earlier loops. He died, but managed to gather the crucial information that he should ask for help next time, noticing that the thugs were afraid of a patrol guard. That led to the victorious loop. He screamed for help with his most manly feminine voice, caught Reinhard's attention, who scared off the thugs. They quickly hit it off, and Subaru rushed off on his mission, going straight to Felt to negotiate as quickly as possible instead of wasting time like in the second loop. It didn't go as planned. This time, though, Amelia showed up herself and began fighting the 3, until Elsa arrived and became everyone's common enemy. Subaru then helped Felt escape, wanting to save her, unable to stand Elsa mocking her, and took responsibility by fighting alongside Ram and Amelia to stop Elsa until Reinhard arrived, thanks to Felt having gone to call him for help. The battle? For Subaru, it was truly something out of another world, ironically, where the Sword Saint managed to subdue the Bow Hunter. Everything was going perfectly. Subaru even managed to get his reward, learning Amelia's true name, before passing out from a wound Elsa had inflicted when she tried one last time to attack Amelia, only for Subaru to block her with Ram's club. When he woke up again, he found himself in a room inside the Astraea mansion, receiving treatment from a healer hired by Reinhard himself. The first thing he needed to know was if everyone was safe. Not just if they were alive, but for a particularly selfish and desperate reason. He needed to know if they remembered him. If he had really managed to overcome that loop and wasn't the only one left with all the memories after those 3 deaths. And to his great relief, the answer was yes. Everyone was alive, safe, and remembered everything that had happened. His first real victory, marking the beginning of his chaotic new life in this new world. But then almost immediately after he woke up, confusion began involving Reinhard and Felt, Subaru, from what I understand so far. The country's in a tough spot after the royal family died. And so this dragon tablet passed on the words of some divine dragon saying there would be 5 candidates to become the next ruler, and they're chosen by that insignia Amelia had. Is that right? Reinhard, exactly. Subaru, and after I passed out using the last of my heroic strength to stop that lunatic Elsa's attack, Felt went to return the insignia, and it started glowing in her hand, revealing that she's the last royal candidate. And you, immediately after that, knocked her out and kidnapped her. Reinhard, Subaru, I wouldn't quite put it like that. Felt, but that's exactly what you did, you damn idiot. Reinhard, Lady Felt, please, manners, still feeling slightly nervous from the way the two attacked him with their words in different ways. Subaru tried to stay rational while Feld was clearly furious, arms crossed and teeth grinding slightly. Subaru, wait, so Amelia's insignia was that important? Reinhard, yes, like I said, it's the symbol given to each dragon candidate to prove they've been chosen to become the next ruler. If it were lost or stolen, the candidate would be disqualified for being unable to protect it, especially if they couldn't recover it. Subaru, and she let it get stolen net-a-seely by some random street thief. Felt, I'm not just some random thief, big bro. Subaru, don't take it personally, Felt, I'm just shocked. Something that valuable, she should have guarded it with her life. And that idiot Puck too, losing something so important. That's like losing a pile of sacred gold coins. Would you just let someone snatch a pile of sacred gold coins from you in the middle of the street? Felt, I'd lose my arms before I let that happen. Proclaiming proudly, Felt slammed her fist on the table. Subaru, and I asked for such a dumb reward. Felt, you really did. Subaru, oi. You should say it was something amazing and romantic. Like I was a hero, a knight in shining armor making a beautiful wish like those old love stories. Felt, not gonna say that, big bruh. Saying it with a mocking smile, she laughed at Subaru's comical anger when she teased him at that moment. Both wore amused smiles. Reinhard watched their exchange with a small smile on his face. Reinhard, Lady Felsama, I know this situation may not be to your liking, but I assure you, with the support I wish to offer you, if you accept me as your knight, you could become. Felt, I don't want anything to do with this. Got it? Growling in anger, she cast a glare that silenced the red-haired boy. Reinhard let out a small sigh. Subaru kept switching his gaze between the two, deep in thought, analyzing the exchange taking place. Subaru, you said that without Felt the royal selection can't begin, right? Reinhard, yes, without Lady Feltsam's presence to start the royal selection, we cannot begin. We already have 4 candidates, and only the last one is missing for the official start. Subaru, and how long would it take to officially start? Reinhard, with the information that would need to be passed on to the wise council and to formally announce her participation. It would take about a month. That's when the candidates would gather and declare their intentions as rulers alongside their official knights. With this new information, Subaru placed his hand on his chin, thinking even more deeply about what he was hearing. Felt, what are you thinking about, big bro? You look kinda suspicious, especially with those eyes of yours. Subaru, even if you say that, I can't exactly change my eyes, you know. Reinhard, if Felt chose to drop out after the royal selection officially starts, could she? Reinhard, if it were her wish, she could indeed drop out. Although I firmly believe she could become a good ruler, for reasons I'm still trying to fully understand. Subaru, that would sound really suspicious coming from someone else, but from you it sounds less suspicious than it should. But still important, how about we make a deal? Raising a finger as he pointed upwards, Subaru flashed a confident smile, which left the other two confused and curious about what he was about to propose, as well as his intentions. Subaru, Felt doesn't want to be part of the royal selection, but you want and need her to participate to start the contest among the candidates who have already been chosen and are eager to compete, right? So here's the deal. Felt, you'll agree to take part in the royal selection, at least until the month is up and everyone has made their declarations. Once the official start happens, you can announce your resignation, That way you get what you want, Rain. Felt. And what do I get out of it? Subaru. How about 100 sacred gold coins? Felt. The girl's eyes sparkled, and Subaru could have sworn he saw a little trail of drool escape her lips upon hearing those words, while Reinhard simply looked on curiously. Subaru, that's the deal. For the next month. Felt will stay here, listen to you, and do the things a royal candidate is expected to do. And you'll do your best to convince her to accept her role as a candidate. But if by the official start she still doesn't want to continue, you'll give her 100 sacred gold coins as payment for helping the selection process move forward to choose the next king of the country. I think that's pretty fair, don't you? You give everyone what they want, and you get a chance to win her over. And if you fail, she gets a nice pile of gold. Felt. Sounds interesting, but... Subaru, and if you went back to the slums right now, there's a good chance Elsa would be there, waiting to clean up the loose ends of a failed job. And if you ask me, I doubt any confident, sadistic, and cruel assassin would allow any slip-ups in their perfect record. Wouldn't it be better to have Rain as your bodyguard until everything is safe? Felt. You know what? Staying here might not be such a bad idea after all, don't you think, big bro? Subaru couldn't help but give a small smile seeing her deliberate and look slightly nervous at the mention of the bowel hunter who could be after her in the slums. Subaru. But you have to agree to listen to Reinhard, even if he makes you do ridiculous and weird noble things, okay? Let's try to cooperate with the guy who could blow us into dust if he wanted to. Reinhard. I wouldn't do that, my friend. Felt. And people say you wouldn't kidnap someone either, huh? Alright. If the sword dunce agrees to this deal, I can put up with staying here for a month. At least until I'm done with all this stupidity. And I can go back to Old Man Rom with a bag full of gold. So, can you accept what Big Bro said? Or do you want to demand something else? Reinhard. I see no problem with it, Lady Feldsama. If this allows you to at least initiate the royal selection and gives me a chance to convince you to accept your role as ruler, I won't oppose your decision to step down if you choose to do so. And, as Subaru suggested, yes, I will compensate you with the amount asked and will no longer bother you, ensuring your safe departure. Even if he didn't seem too thrilled about it, Reinhard politely accepted the agreement made between the three seated at the table in the Astria mansion. Subaru. That being said, Rain, could you get me a job here? I really have nowhere to go, and I'm flat broke beyond broke. I'd be grateful if I could stay here, at least until I get back on my feet. Reinhard. I wouldn't mind helping you, my friend. If you'd like, I can arrange a job for you as one of the mansion's butlers. Subaru. Butler, huh? Looks like you're gonna see a lot of me around here, Felt good. Because I wasn't gonna let you leave after dragging me into this mess. Subaru. But weren't you the one who dragged yourself into it when you agreed to steal the insignia? Felt.
I'm hungry.
Choosing not to answer Subaru's logical counterpoint, she decided to change the subject altogether. Subaru was ready to continue the debate about whose fault this whole mess really was. Meanwhile, Reinhard had a small, amused smile on his face as he watched their interactions. And as he had said the night he brought them to the mansion, it would be the last night he could peacefully observe the moon. But the future didn't seem all that bad. Chapter 2. Subaru, my character deductions never fail, Felt, eh? How did you find me here? Subaru, given your rebellious personality, the way you'd like to sneak out, and the fact that no one found you trying to get past the walls, it's easy to deduce where you'd be. Never underestimate a NEET's skills at finding people. Felt, I don't know what a NEEP is, but it sounds pretty sad. Speaking in a tired tone with a weary look and expression that hit Subaru's pride a little, and he could only sigh, realizing there was no way to defend himself even if she didn't know the actual meaning of the word. It would be easy to guess he'd be lying if he tried. But for now he'd let it go, as the two now found themselves on the rooftop of the Estrella mansion, Felt calmly sitting in one spot and Subaru, slightly trembling, approaching her. Felt, what are you doing here, big bro? Subaru, I don't know, came to get some air. Although the air down there's probably the same, huh? At least up here I'm less afraid of falling and breaking something so badly I lose my breath. Felt, then what are you doing here? Did Sword Damas or the old men send you? Subaru, kind of. They just said you were up here, and that you weren't seen trying to sneak off again, which I'll remind you is really bad for that agreement we made with Rain, you know? I'd appreciate a bit more cooperation. Erg. Sitting with a small drop of movement, he joined her in a weird way, swinging his legs. The girl remained calmly seated. They sat together. Subaru, in an awkward position, legs dangling over the edge of the roof, while Felt sat calmly like she was on a regular chair in a house. Subaru, and you? What are you doing here? Felt, nothing much. Just enjoying the view. Subaru, and looking for a way to escape. Felt, of course, and looking for a way to get out of here. Felt admitted it openly with humor, and Subaru gave her a mischievous smile in agreement. Subaru, all right then, I'll help. My vision, sharpened by video games, could be of great use. Felt, I still feel sad when you say weird things like that as references. This place is so different. Subaru, Felt, from the slums. The black-haired boy couldn't help but nod, even though he barely knew the slums besides his first few days and his visits to Ram. He could already clearly see the difference between a noble's mansion, especially one with such renown, and the homes and inner layout of the slums in the capital. The Stria mansion was huge, unbelievably massive, a place with such a large area that you could build several houses within its grounds. There were trees even inside its gardens, hundreds of colorful flowers, a large wall surrounding the entire mansion, and even a few small towers, the estate of an extremely rich and powerful family. The place oozed nobility, wealth, power, and elegance so much that Subaru was sure the Astria family were like the billionaires in his world who owned private islands just for vacations, which made him feel a bit envious. Totally different from where Felt came from. It was obvious to Subaru. He had even seen the house she lived in, and Ram's as well. Both could fit inside this mansion and wouldn't even take up 1% of its space, which made the vast difference even clearer. From the roof of the grand noble mansion, they could see the mansion grounds, a bit beyond, and if you sharpened your vision, even catch a glimpse of the royal capital. Even though the slums weren't visible, it was still easy to guess where they'd be, where they'd begin and end, even if just by deduction from the limited view. The moonlight and the stars sparkling in the sky made for a spectacular sight for anyone viewing the horizon from this place. Extraordinary for common folk. Subaru, Felt-chan, why do you want to run away so badly? You've already tried so many times. Didn't we make that deal to score big once you made your little debut in the selection? Felt, Subaru, what? Did I say something dumb? I feel like I said something dumb, and that feeling only gets stronger when you give me that look like I'm gonna push you off this roof. Felt, I do want to, big bruh. With a slightly irritated expression and a puffed cheek, she confirmed Subaru's worried words. The black-haired boy stayed silent, analyzing. Even though he thought of himself as someone who couldn't read the mood, an idiot and a totally useless person, Subaru allowed himself to take a little pride in his quick thinking when he managed to catch some hint to understand a situation. Because ever since they made the deal between Felt and Reinhard, Felt had already broken part of the agreement by trying to escape several times, even though Subaru had started doing her the favor of visiting Ram and keeping them both updated. It particularly worried him, not necessarily because the deal was being broken, but because of what could happen to Felt if she kept doing what she was doing, without any sign of change in her impulsive behavior of trying to run back to the slums and Ram, though he could understand why, but something still felt missing. A piece. Subaru realized that when she expressed herself the way she did when he, Subaru, do you hate being a royal candidate? Felt, maybe. Subaru, want to talk about it? I'm not the best at talking, believe me. I'm a dumbass who doesn't know how to give good advice or guidance. But at the very least, I can try to make you feel comfortable so you can open up with someone who's actually good at this. So, what? Why? Felt nothing. I just found your rambling annoying, she said after punching Subaru in the ribs, nearly making him bite his tongue. Subaru, Tesk, I'm here trying to act like a cool guy and super awesome big brother, and this is how you treat me. Felt, then try a little less. Subaru, no, I can't. Not when you look like you want to say something and keep dodging it. And believe me, I'm an expert at that kind of thing. Felt? That confused her, the way he accused her, but also the serious, almost worried tone he used. With that, they both stopped looking at each other, returning their gaze to the front, just sitting side by side, watching the estate grounds. Felt, do you think I matter, Subaru? Felt, I mean, would they care about me if I weren't a candidate? Subaru, finally understanding what she meant, it now made sense what she was thinking. Or at least he could imagine what she was likely thinking, from what he knew himself. Felt, they keep treating me well, serving me, giving me all this stuff. And Sword Dumbass keeps talking about the expectations he and the others have for me. Subaru, but it makes you wonder, would they do all this if I weren't a candidate? Felt, yeah, in the slums people look after each other, unless they have to choose survival over loyalty. So, you get it, you get used to it, and can even see a kind of honor in that, but with these people, it doesn't feel that way. Subaru, because they never did anything before, right? Felt, yeah, exactly. Before I became a candidate, I already lived in that slum, surviving day by day, fighting for every single thing that was mine. And none of them ever showed up to give those things to me or to the others. They didn't lend a hand, didn't give any gifts, didn't even try to do anything, and just kept ignoring us. With great frustration, she clenched her fist and slammed it against the side of the roof, grinding her teeth. Finally, Subaru understood what she was thinking in that moment and why she got so angry whenever he mentioned the agreement. Because he also completely understood Felt's importance to those around her. Just a title and a sack of gold. And that made Subaru connect all the dots, connecting everything he'd learned about the girl. The black-haired young man pieced together the full explanation behind her anger and frustration toward her current situation. Felt had lived in the slums since she was a baby, raised by Ram, an old giant who cared for her like she was his own granddaughter. They never received any help or support from the nobles, which included Reinhard, even though Subaru didn't think it was out of malice. And now, she was in a noble setting, seeing their luxurious lives up close, receiving that kind of treatment because she was useful for something they wanted, an object. Realizing that left a bitter taste in his mouth. He swallowed hard, feeling like he had played a part, even if unintentionally, in what was hurting her now. It even reminded him of how he felt about his father, Kenichi Natsuki. Did people praise him for being himself or for being his father's son? Did they expect him to be better or to match his father? Did people want what he had to offer, or did they want him to give what his father once gave them? Would people even look at you if you had nothing to offer them? Subaru, would they even care to treat me the way they do if I had nothing to give them or didn't have something they desperately wanted? That's what you're thinking, isn't it? Felt, that's exactly it. None of them cared about me before, so they won't care when I'm gone, after I leave this election. And all I'll have is what I'm worth to them, a sack of sacred gold coins, and I'll go back to the slums. And you'll stay here, happy, living the fancy life. Subaru. Felt, I'm not gonna blame you for that, alright? A job in a place like this, good pay, no need to fight for food. It really is a good life. I guess when I'm gone, you wow. Suddenly, before Felt could predict or dodge it, she was struck on the top of her head by a punch. She turned to him, ready to yell. But she stopped. She stopped because of the look in his eyes, a glare full of anger and frustration, which, thanks to his intense eyes, became even more powerful and prevented her from counterattacking, even though she was more than capable of doing so, especially there on the rooftop. Subaru, you think I'm using you? You think that's what I was doing with you? Erg, I can't even blame you for thinking that way. I'm not exactly trustworthy. Both my eyes and my personality, right? When I asked for a butler job here, it was for a lot of reasons. I had nowhere else to go. I couldn't read or write, which I'm only learning now thanks to Rain. I had no money and no way to understand this place I was in. I had to take the opportunities I had just to get a roof over my head and find my bearings. It was never about using you. Got it. I've taken way more advantage of Rain's kindness and generosity in all this. Felt. Subaru. It offends me that you think I'd try to exploit your situation. The truth is, I thought you wouldn't care, that you'd just take the money and live happily. But then I realized how stupid I am to think people don't have more complex feelings than just profit. Blaming himself, he slapped both cheeks with his hands, while Felt just stared at him, trying to understand what he meant. Subaru. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how much what I said and did hurt you, Felt. I should have seen it, but I'm an idiot. Felt. Yeah, you are. Subaru. I won't argue with that, and I'd go with you if you wanted me to. Felt. What? She was surprised by those words. Subaru. If you wanted me to go, I'd go with you to the slums and help you and old man Rom, even though I'm completely useless physically, terrible at chores, a total idiot in negotiations, and even worse at lying. I'd still try to help. Felt. Nothing you just said about yourself makes me want to have you around, big bro. Subaru. But I am pretty smart in some areas, if I may say so myself. Even if it was hard, I wouldn't mind going with you and helping it any way I could. For me, at least, I can say for sure, I don't care if you're a royal candidate. You're still the girl who ditched me in an alley to be mugged by 3 thugs. It felt... I don't remember that, big bro, but I'm sorry. Speaking nervously about the last part, a bit of nervous sweat dripped from her forehead, before a small smile appeared. Felt, but I think it'd be impossible for you, big bro. You've barely survived here. And I'm not saying that to crush your self-esteem or to hurt that joke you call a sense of pride, but you're not cut out for the slums. I wouldn't want to drag you there, not when you can have a better life here. Subaru. You sound just like old man Rom. Felt. What? Subaru. He said something similar when he told me to try to stop you from running away and to enjoy this new life. Because he wants you to have what he couldn't give you. Remembering the talks he had with the giant old man. Subaru couldn't help but think how he truly was a real grandfather to the blonde girl with red eyes, even if not by blood. Felt. Of all people, at least it's just the words. If it were the looks, I'd rather get punched in the head. Even though I love him, I don't want to end up like him. Subaru. Understandable. Both nodded as they crossed their arms, unaware that back in the slums, Rom felt like giving both of them a few whacks. Subaru stared at her for a moment. Subaru, why don't you care about them? The people in the slums. Felt, huh? Of course I. Subaru. No. No. I messed up my words. Forgive this idiot. You said no one ever looked at you until you became a candidate. So how about you be the one to reach out to them like they're doing for you? Felt, what could I even do, big bro? Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't make any difference. Subaru, you could try. If you won't make a difference by trying to change things, you'll make even less by giving up before even trying. That would be worse, don't you think? Giving up before trying and trading it all for the comfort of a room or a sack of money with 100 coins. Felt noticed Subar's expression growing sadder as he spoke, and even saw how he mentioned a room, trying to focus on something he may have experienced himself. But setting that aside for now, she focused on Subaru's words. Was it worth fighting against the nobles? She knew it would be useless for someone like her. A poor girl, a thief from the slums, who held no importance in the eyes of high society. But now, stopping to think, analyzing the black-haired boy's words deeply, her situation was different now. She had the support of someone powerful, the backing of a renowned household, and now she held a sort of title that gave weight to her words. Words that would otherwise be categorically dismissed by others, an opportunity to change something, or a bag of money. A choice that felt easy for Felt. To give up and accept life as it was. To fight for survival another day in the slums, accepting how unfair the world was to those less fortunate, accepting that some people had money, status, and power, while others didn't and would have to live with that until the end of time. It was an opportunity for great profit. But even so, she still had doubts, still had fear. Felt, if I decided to try, would you help me? Subaru, if you decided to try, I'll be there. Whether you succeed or fail, I won't stop helping you with whatever you need, okay? Saying that, he gave a big smile while closing his eyes, his teeth showing. One hand on the top of her head, gently rubbing the spot he had hit earlier, massaging it to soothe the pain while also comforting her and trying to push away her doubts. From the girl's perspective, everything behind him, the stars and moonlight, which had been hidden by a pair of clouds, seemed to shine even more brightly. Such a scene made her heart skip a beat and her cheeks warmed slightly. Subaru then stood up with some difficulty, unaware of the reaction he had caused in her, stretching a bit to ease the pain from sitting in such an uncomfortable position on the edge of the rooftop, like the girl, who didn't seem to find any difference between sitting there and on a regular comfy chair. Subaru, how about we head inside, huh? Let's enjoy a nice meal and take a good bath. What do you say? Wah-ah. Felt, big bro. She watched him lose his balance and fall off the roof onto a tree below. She heard the sound of branches breaking like rustling leaves, followed by a dull thud. It made her worry, her face shocked. Subaru, I'm okay, shouting from the ground. Felt let out a relieved sigh, then let out a small laugh at what she had just witnessed. Unbeknownst to her and Subaru, on the other side of the roof, hidden, was Reinhard, listening and watching them without interfering, observing them, with a small reassuring smile on his face as he realized that Felt seemed to be accepting the idea of becoming a candidate thanks to Subaru's support, and that made him smile slightly, relieved. Chapter 3. You really don't want to try even a sip? Subaru, unfortunately for you, Ramjiji, there's nothing I can do about it. Where I come from, there's a specific legal age before you can start drinking. It'd even be a crime for an older adult like you to offer me a drink, even just one, when I'm under the drinking age. Ram, a minimum drinking age, well, that makes sense. But are you a kid or something? Subaru, I am not a kid, but I also don't have my parents' permission for that kind of thing. They'd probably be disappointed in me if I did something like that. Ram, and you say you're not a kid after saying something like that? Subaru let out a small groan of exasperation as the old man's argument shattered his own. The dark-haired young man was sitting on one of the bar's stools. Subaru sat across from the giant old man at the counter of Ram's bar, while Ram stared at him from the other side with a slightly smug smile after their exchange. Subaru, looks like your bar's been rebuilt pretty well. Ram, well, define well. I barely managed to rebuild anything after that guy caused so much damage fighting that assassin. Subaru, and whose fault was that again? Ram, I blame all of you. Subaru, don't put that on me, on Reinhard, or on Amelia. Felt was the one who stole that insignia. Speaking more loudly, he pointed accusingly at the old man, making Ram grit his teeth a bit and take a small step back, sweating lightly as if he were being cornered by the boy's words. Ram, don't blame me for that. I just taught her to try getting the best job possible with the best pay she could get and to do her best to survive. Subaru, and I blame you for teaching her to steal and do that kind of thing. You're not even her real grandpa, and didn't you just say you taught her the things you're saying she's responsible for? Ram. I said taught her the basics. Find good work, do good work, get good pay. Not to risk her life for something that's not even worth the payment. She just got a little too greedy. But I can't really blame her because this time, it did look like a simple, harmless job. How were we unlucky enough that she stole something so important from a royal candidate? Subaru, don't even start, I thought the same thing. How did I end up getting involved with two royal candidates, of sword disdain, an assassin, and an old man on my first day? I expected something like that in my isekai story eventually, but that was way too fast and without any explanation or context. Ram, what the hell are you talking about, brat? Rome raised an eyebrow in confusion at Subaru's strange words, but the truth was that both were thinking the same thing. How did they end up tangled in something as deep as the royal selection because of what seemed like a simple job Felt took? It felt like a joke from destiny itself. Felt stealing Amelia's insignia ended up revealing Amelia as a candidate, which then dragged all of them into the current mess. Rom, how is she doing over there in that mansion? Has she been eating well? Sleeping, right? Studying? Taking care of herself? Subaru, you already asked me that before. It hasn't even been a week and a half since the last time I came to talk to you. Rom, that's called the passage of time. Things that didn't go wrong last week could have gone wrong this week, and I can only know through you, you stupid brat. Subaru, ah, right. Good point, makes sense. Subaru nodded several times in agreement with Rom's reasoning. It made sense that Rom worried about Felt's situation. After all, he was her adoptive grandfather. Subaru, she's been eating fine. She prefers sweets more than other foods and even asks for some after lunch and dinner. Not that I can blame her. But she really shouldn't demand so much from Reinhard just to get desserts. Rom, the girl has her preferences, and I don't blame her. Did you bring me some too? Subaru, yes. He pulled out a wrapped lunchbox from beside him and slid it toward the old man. Rom dragged it closer with a satisfied smile. Rom, perfect. Just tell her not to overdo it and end up gaining too much weight. Subaru, I'm not saying that to her face, that'd be suicide. Rom, coward. Subaru, do you mean say it personally to her or say that you told me she'd get fat if she ate too many sweets? Rom, I don't think we need to get involved in that matter. Both nodded in agreement as they moved to the next topic. Subaru, about the sleeping part. Well, she sleeps pretty well whenever she has time. Considering the difference between a comfy mattress like the one she has now and the place she used to sleep before. The difference is like comparing a bronze coin to a gold coin, if you want a more specific example. Rom, funny enough, that example actually makes sense. And it even makes me a little jealous of having a comfortable mattress like that. That would be Suka. Nice, Subaru. What's with that disgusting look? Subaru made a comically disgusted and shocked expression at Rom, who had a strangely sparkling look in his eyes, as if he were trying to appear cute. It had the complete opposite effect of anything he might have wanted. Subaru, I can bring you sweets and stuff like that without the others complaining much. But bringing a mattress or pillows from there? People would start thinking I'm trying to steal things from the mansion for you. Rom, aren't you technically already doing that? And don't they already suspect you're doing something shady since you keep coming down here to the slums to see me? Subaru, compared to that, what I'm doing is following Felt's orders, and she, as a candidate, has the authority to order me to do whatever she wants, especially since I'm her butler and her personal tailor. Rom, like her loyal little pet? Subaru, I'm not a pet. For the last time, I'm a friend, and I'm doing my best to give her as much advice and care as I can. Frustrated by the accusation of being a pet, the boy closed his eyes and crossed his arms with an expression that clearly screamed, "See, I'm not?" Rom couldn't stop himself from letting out a small laugh. Teasing the boy was fun. He was always expressive and honest. Rom, I hope you really are taking care of that Brett. Because besides some things about how to survive and do her work, I never taught her anything about politics or stuff like that. Subaru, Well, can't blame you. I don't know much about that either. I'm a regular student with zero knowledge about running an entire kingdom, at least not one like this. Rom, which worries me even more, because I still don't feel comfortable leaving her alone in that mansion with those people. Subaru, but weren't you happy? Because so many times you said that you were. Rom, you believe the words of an old man but can't read someone's emotions. Really, there's no way I could trust you to handle problems like that, Skay. Growing a bit more impatient, the old giant filled his cup with a generous amount of alcohol, both to drown some of his frustrations and to calm himself down. Meanwhile, Subaru kept his arms crossed, now with his eyes open to face him as he sighed. Subaru, she doesn't really seem to like the idea of being a queen. Well, I wouldn't want to suddenly become a candidate either because that's way too much work. But she truly doesn't seem excited at all about staying close to nobles, royalty, or people like that. Ram, if you don't get it, it's because you never bothered to ask her, right? Subaru, I have talked to her about it before. About how nobles and knights don't care about people from the slums. And how now she suddenly matters to them as a royal candidate, when she didn't matter at all back when she lived in the slums. Ram, yeah, it makes sense she'd question that. Even I get frustrated with that kind of thing. Subaru, man, you're such a complicated old dude. With a slightly teasing sigh, he couldn't help but find the whole thing somewhat funny. On the night he had a more serious conversation with Felt about not giving up on being a royal candidate and fighting for people. He'd used Ram's desires as motivation, saying Ram wouldn't want her to throw away a life-changing opportunity like this, a chance to talk and coexist with nobles, which was kind of hypocritical, wasn't it? Ram wanted her to live a better life far from the slums, yet at the same time he didn't want her to get swallowed up by that new world, probably. Subaru, you don't want her to be used by others, right? Ram, you understood well. Ram looked down with something resembling disappointment in himself, mixed with a hint of sadness. The two sat in silence for a few moments. Ram, even if it isn't obvious or visible, it's pretty clear. Felt is a good girl, but impulsive. Most of the time she's like that. She also has a lot of potential to become a great leader, and I trust she can get there if she has the right people to guide and teach her. But still, she's impulsive. I'm the same way. Subaru, the worst part is that I'm also like that, except I'm even worse, just a hopeless idiot. Ram, see why I'm worried? Leaving her with you is like throwing oil onto a hot fire. Maybe worse. If she ever made a reckless decision that caused trouble for herself because of that impulsiveness, the nobles and powerful people could have easily used her as a scapegoat for whatever problems showed up and walk away clean. They'd do it with political power she barely even has right now, even as a candidate, because she came from the slums, as you well know. Subaru, that's actually kind of embarrassing. Ram, what worries me is that they'd use and exploit her in ways where her trying to defend herself would only make things worse. Even that sword saint can't fix everything just with his name or title, and honestly I think he needs to learn that too. Subaru, I've got to agree with you there, Ramjiji. Rain is a good person, but he's hard to deal with. Not in a bad way, he's more like a good kid who doesn't really understand adult life outside of work. To be honest, that was Subaru's only real complaint about Reinhard. Reinhard seemed like someone who believed too strongly in his own ideals, with the confidence that everything would work out simply because he was the sword saintor. At least that's what it felt like. In reality, it felt like he'd been taught how to be the sword saintor. Something close to it before being taught how to be a normal human being. Subaru had no idea how he was supposed to teach him how to live like an ordinary person, but he genuinely believed Reinhard lacked some basic common sense needed for his own growth. In other words, it was like someone had taught him to be a weapon before teaching him to be a person, ever since he was a child. Subaru, look, I'm not someone who fully understands what needs to be done to help her. Honestly, I'm more lost than anyone when it comes to this kind of stuff. Ram, is this the start of some motivational speech? Subaru, nah, I'm being honest, I'm not strong, I'm not smart, I'm not good at anything. Ram, Brett, do you want me to feel even more pity for you than I already did? Subaru, that would make me feel even worse. Actually, I already feel bad just knowing you pity me. Subaru let out a soft, amused huff at the old giant's words. He uncrossed his arms and placed his hands on the bar counter. Subaru, I already told Felt that I won't abandon her or Rain. I'll help however I can. Ram, how far are you willing to go for that? Subaru, you want me to say I'll risk my life and die for her? Well, you'd be asking too much for me, don't you think? Ram, as a grandfather who can barely trust the people around her right now, having someone in there willing to do that would help ease my worries a bit. Subaru, woo-oh. With a dramatic sigh, Subaru showed a gentle, calm smile. He stayed thoughtfully quiet for a moment. Subaru, I guess I don't have many options left, huh? Even though it's a pretty troublesome promise to make, I'll say it. If necessary, I'll give my life to protect her. And Rain will do the same, but I doubt he'd die that easily no matter who he's facing. Ram didn't question it further, because despite Subaru's lighthearted, strange, and joking tone, for some reason Ram knew that the boy was serious about doing it. Was this like making a pact? It felt like he was entrusting his granddaughter to someone who was already willing to protect her and the others. Ram, then I give you my permission to watch over my granddaughter. But please, wait until she grows and matures enough before trying anything in your relationship. Subaru, what are you even talking about? Ram, I'm simply giving you my blessing, you idiotic brat. I'll entrust her to you. Subaru was left speechless and extremely red-faced at the older man's words, letting out a frustrated huff. He spun around on the stool and stood up. Subaru, I don't have to listen to this. It's not like I'm becoming her fiancé or anything. I'm just promising that I'll help her, take care of her, protect her, and risk my life to save hers. I do sound like I'm becoming her fiancé. Damn it. I don't want to look like that with such a young girl. I'll look like a monster. Ram, and your eyes don't help. Adding fuel to the boy's embarrassment, Ram chuckled at Subaru's comically dramatic meltdown as he held his head in his hands. Ram, if I may ask, what do you really think of Felt? Subaru, she's a loud, bratty tomboy. Ram, that was fast. A bead of sweat slid down the old man's head. He sighed tiredly as he scratched the back of his neck. And then he saw a more interesting expression on Subaru's face. Subaru, it's just that she's fun, honest, and loyal. I think she's truly a good and amazing person. Ram, I won't disagree with the compliments you gave my granddaughter. Subaru, yeah. I think she can be just as good of a girl as Amelia. Ram, you're talking about the half-elf girl. Actually, today you took longer to bring her up than in our previous conversations. Subaru, really? Huh? Weird. Resting his hand on his chin in a more thoughtful pose he didn't even notice. After all, he had praised that girl many times in his talks with Ram over the past weeks, right before completing a full month since arriving in that world. Amelia had been the first kind person he met who helped him, and he wanted to do something for her, help her against Elsa, as well as help Felt and Ram. Ram, I have one more selfish request to make of you. Subaru, another one, isn't that asking too much? Ram, this one is much more important right now. Please, besides being willing to give your life for her, also try to live for her. Subaru, what do you mean? Wouldn't those be completely opposite things? Ram, they're different, brat. Dying for someone means dedicating yourself to the point of throwing your life away for that person. Living for someone means dedicating yourself to the point of throwing your pain away to live on for that person. In the first case, you want to live, but you're willing to die for her. In the second case, you want to die, but you're willing to live for her. Subaru, you want me to make my life solely for Ram, not like that. Realizing exactly where Subaru's thoughts were heading, Ram cut him off immediately. He couldn't let the boy misunderstand his words and end up losing himself in an irreversible way. Ram, it's not about living only for her. There's no problem in living for yourself. Whether it's seeking happiness, chasing your own goals, or going after your own dreams. You don't need to base your entire existence on being only what she needs you to be. No. Living for her is when you've lost everything you thought mattered, but then you realize you've found something new that can be just as important. Not replacing it, as if you threw something away for something new, but shifting your aim. If your goal was already to live to achieve something, then the people around you may come and go. But they can still be special to you because they helped you get where you are, whether through good or bad paths, they still did. Subaru. Ram, I talk too much, but what I meant is, if one day you feel like you have no goals left to keep going, or you feel like you could throw your life away, then I want you to live for her. I'll be selfish about this. Live for her while she pursues her own goals, and live to find your own again if you ever lose the one you have now. But if you believe you can't promise me that, if you believe you might not be able to live for her, Please, I want you to leave before you end up making her suffer." His final words were harsher, colder, shattering any warm or friendly mood from before. He truly sounded like an elderly guardian worried about his granddaughter, not caring if he needed to say something cruel to force the boy to think. Subaru remained silent, still facing Ram from his seat. The words were still sinking into his mind, clinging, fixing themselves in place as if trying to help him reflect. "Subaru, Ram, I know I said this after making you promise you'd die for her. Something that sounds more important than living for her. But I don't want you dedicating your life to the point of sacrificing it for her without first dedicating your own happiness and personal life. I'm a hypocritical old monster who wants you to protect my granddaughter, but also wants you not to use that as an excuse to ignore your own life. Subaru, I understand. Ram, you don't need to give me an answer now, and I know you already told her and me that you dedicate yourself to helping her. But it's okay to change how you think as time passes. You're young, foolish, naive. Your words need to match your maturity before making a decision like that. So, think. Think deeply about everything, and I'll take responsibility for any trouble you might have with my granddaughter in the future. Subaru, I'll remember that." Their final words closed the conversation completely, the tone calmer but still serious and slightly cold. But neither of them meant harm. Ram truly seemed to care about Subaru's life and safety, seeing how determined he was to throw his life away for reasons Ram couldn't fully grasp. Having said his piece, they both waved and said their goodbyes. Ram felt he had demanded too much from the boy, almost to the point of regret. Yet he felt he needed to say it, needed to get everything out and make the kid do the same. What mattered now was how the boy would react and move forward from those words. For some reason, the giant old man hoped this conversation had helped Subaru. Maybe age was making him kinder toward the foolish youth of today. Maybe. But he had also just acted like a grandfather giving his blessing to someone courting his granddaughter, Ram. "Ow, what a pain," he muttered as he prepared to eat the sweets Subaru had brought him. Epilogue. 1. Subaru. Subaru stood there without reacting to anything, thinking deeply. Subaru, what should I do? Questioning himself, he once again asked himself about that matter. Should he really follow the path that would be best for everyone? Subaru, what should I do? Looking ahead, his eyes were fixed on a knife. It was one of the kitchen knives, a well-kept, sharp-bladed knife, and he stared at his own reflection in it, pensive, sitting on the edge of the bed. Thoughts whirling through his mind in a violent storm, trying to understand whether what he was about to do was right or wrong. Thoughts that some would call erratic, considering the decision he was trying to make. Because at that exact moment, he was wondering whether he should or shouldn't stab his own throat with that weapon. Wondering whether he should do something like that. Analyzing every possibility before him in the situation he found himself in. What should he really do right now? That same question returned to his mind once more, in a moment when this ability of his could be used for the sake of others. Subaru. It would be better for everyone, right, wouldn't it? Be good? It was hard to think about such a matter. What had happened for Subaru to reach this kind of thought, whether to take his own life or not? It began when they went to visit Amelia after everything that had happened inside the castle on the day of the royal selection. It was supposed to be a normal trip for the group. They even found the perfect excuse to do Subaru needing to help her and apologize in case he had caused any trouble during the selection. What had happened that day? Subaru ended up interfering several times, even alongside Felt, to defend both Felt and Amelia from the nobles' attacks and the comments of others. Subaru even nearly started a fight with Julius that day, but everything was easily explained by Reinhard, who happened to be friends with that man as well. All because the two also wanted to meet the half-elf outside the competition after so long since the day she visited Subaru after the insignia incident. But along the way, in that moment, something unexpected happened to all of them. They witnessed people being evacuated from Arlam village by the mansion staffed by Frederica, whom he met that day alongside Amelia, Puck, and Rame, fighting against an attack from the witch cult. An attack that happened the very moment they arrived to help, when at first it was simply to apologize and try to build a more positive relationship with the silver-haired girl. It was an intense event, and it was there that they ended up separating from Reinhard and Amelia's group. Reinhard stayed behind to fight the cult, even to face the Archbishop of Sloth, eliminating as many enemies as he could. Subaru placed absolute trust in Reinhard's abilities at that moment. All he and Felt could do was face the difficulty of those events, doing their best to help Frederica, Amelia, Puck, and Ram evacuate the people, guiding them through the few carriages available into the Mather's domain, trying to protect them within the court magician's territory. And so they managed to bring the villagers of that small settlement into the mansion, leaving the entire battle to Reinhard. The young man even wondered why the court magician wasn't actively helping, despite apparently being powerful enough to do so. But then, how did the battle end? It ended when the witch cult's Archbishop of Sleuth, in a strange monstrous form, appeared and attacked the mansion when everyone was already inside. Subaru and Felt nearly fell into despair when that monster appeared. But then, the one they trusted most showed up, Reinhard Venestria. The Sword Saint arrived with his sword still sheathed, and using a different sword to fight the Archbishop. It was so effortless for Reinhard that calling that confrontation a battle felt like a joke. Nogru assumed that was also how it went with the rest of the cult members, attacking along with the Archbishop. Subaru even wondered what kind of powers Reinhard had besides those, and Subaru was nearly possessed by the Archbishop's apparent spirit, if not once again for Reinhard's intervention. Reinhard literally split Petalgoose's spirit when it tried to possess him, saving Subaru from having his body stolen. This marked the end of what had been a powerful assault from that monstrous group against the court magician's domain. A battle that lasted only a few minutes once Reinhard stepped in, again showing just how monstrously powerful he was, at least compared to anyone else in the world. It seemed like a good ending, but there had been casualties during the evacuation and other deaths before they even arrived, and that good ending quickly turned into something much worse. Why? Because even though the Archbishop and his group had been eliminated, Subaru and Felt still offered further help to Amelia's camp, especially with so many awful things happening because of the attacks. Amelia ended up refusing Subaru and Felt's offer. But what happened next? Reinhard needed to return to the royal capital to inform them of the attack and the elimination of the Archbishop of Sloth. That could have led to Subaru and Felt returning as well, but both refused, insisting on staying to help Amelia however they could. This resulted in their separation, Reinhard returning to the capital, while Subaru and Felt remained despite Reinhard wanting to bring them back. And various things happened after that, things that felt almost like a blur in his mind now while staring at his reflection in the blade. It all began with Roswal taking Amelia and inviting Felt to escort them to the sanctuary, a place he described as perfect for protecting people in case of another cult attack before they were fully prepared. Something that sounded simple enough. And he used the excuse of needing only Amelia, but extended the invitation to Felt and a few refugees to ensure the place was safe enough for both to remain within his domain. Subaru was stupid, extremely stupid, convinced even by Felda, who said she could handle it correctly without Reinhard's or his help. She followed Roswal and Amelia, taking some of the refugee villagers and the maid Ram to that place known as the sanctuary, while Subaru stayed at the mansion, with the others and the maid Frederica, waiting for Reinhard or someone else to return with news of the sanctuary's safety. After all, part of Arlam village had also been destroyed during the battle. It made sense that they would seek shelter in that new location. Subaru remained in that mansion, and Frederica even showed him around. She explained that she had served there before being temporarily transferred, that she had trained Ram and Rem, the deceased twin sister of the pink-haired Oni who had taken care of the mansion after she was relocated. This eventually led to her return after Rem's sudden death during a previous attack, which also resulted in the disappearance and death of Arlem's children. This filled him with a faint feeling of sorrow. He felt bad for the maid and the others, given everything they had lost so recently. How could he summarize what had happened since then? There had been Reinhard's return from the capital, along with his report that on the way, he had dealt with a battlefield involving the White Whale, which seemed to be circling near the Mother's territory. A surprising coincidence? Subaru didn't know what to say, but after hearing about what little he could remember from Reinhard's family, that must have been extremely important both to Reinhard himself and to his grandfather, whom Subaru later discovered he now couldn't remember anymore. After that, there had been all sorts of trouble involving that place called the Sanctuary. In short, there was another encounter with another powerful Mobbyist, the Great Rabbit. How could so many disasters happen in such a short time and all be linked to a single person? Was Amelia truly cursed to face so many problems? Was that even possible? Could someone really be cursed from birth to endure so many misfortunes at once? So many that it felt like she was destined to confront monsters again and again. After that, they arrived at this place following the losses they suffered in that so-called sanctuary. Lady Anarosa's mansion, someone associated with Roswell. A little girl with a butler named Cleaned. She gave shelter to everyone who had lost their home, and it was a special place because she accepted Amelia without issue. The girl had no problems with Amelia's origins or appearance. A place where he finally had time to reflect, time to think. That was why he was staring at that knife, staring at that cold blade, thinking deeply about what he should do, thinking deeply about what decision he should make at that moment. What if he used that knife? What if he used it to cut his own throat? With return by death, the power he discovered on his first day in the royal capital, he could go back in time, back to a moment long ago, maybe even back to the first day he arrived in this world, allowing him to do everything over again from the beginning. Wouldn't that be perfect? Natsuki Subaru had a power that could, in this moment, be useful to everyone. Natsuki Subaru could simply plunge a blade into his own throat and then be sent back once more to the first day he arrived in this world, ready to face everything again with all the knowledge he now had, just like the first day. Just like when he helped Amelia, helped Ramen felt when he overcame the first challenge of his new life in this world. What would it be like to go so far back? Actually, would he really return to that moment? Was it even possible to go that far back in time and use everything he knows to save everyone? Wouldn't it be worth it? To save so many people, prevent so many tragedies, protect so many lives, wouldn't it be worth it? To return to a point in time where everything could be done more easily? Wouldn't it be worth it? To go back and live everything again, overcoming the challenges once more and whatever new ones came after? Wouldn't it be worth using that ability for such a thing? All he had to do was drive that knife into his throat and then he would return. Most likely, he'd go back to a point in time where he could use this power properly and help the people around him. He could save everyone in every way possible, using this power in the best way. K-N-O-K. K-N-O-K. A sound at the door pulled him out of his daydreams. He quickly glanced toward the bedroom door. Then, startled, he stood up and bent down to slip the knife under the bed of the guest room. Going to the door right after, he felt a little nervous, and when he opened it, he saw someone familiar. Standing before him was a girl with blonde hair and red eyes. Subaru. Felt Chan? Felt yo, big brother. Rain said it'd be best if I came to check on you or something like that. Subaru. He said that? Felt. What? Subaru looked at the blonde girl with suspicion, making her adopt a slightly irritated expression, her cheeks turning faintly pink. It wasn't the first time he had seen Felt visit him using that kind of excuse. Letting out a small laugh, he stepped aside and allowed her to enter. Subaru. Actually, I'm glad you knocked. In the beginning, you used to come in through the window of my room back at the Estrissa mansion, didn't you? Felt. It was faster than waiting for you to open the door. Subaru, I had to ask Flam to help me close them, because I was afraid you'd use your noble status to steal my virtue and use my body as a toy. Felt, as if I would. And aren't you the kind of man who's supposed to protect his virtue or some crap like that? Subaru, but you could just say I was the one who did something and everyone would condemn me for having taken advantage of you, even though it'd be the opposite. Pretending to be heartbroken while hugging his own body protectively, Feld grew even more frustrated, grinding her teeth while her cheeks grew redder with each of his words before her expression twisted into a wild, threatening smile. Felt, or I could say I was tricked and used by you. Subaru? Me? Seriously? Everyone already knows me. They know I'm a virgin, a neat, a coward who wouldn't have the guts to lay a hand on a girl. I'm such an open book that even a child could fool me. Felt. You say it with such pride it actually inspires people to brag about their flaws as if they were virtues. A bead of sweat slid down the back of her head as she said this, while Subaru wore a proud expression. Those words were true. Despite his jokes, weird mannerisms, and odd comments, Subaru was extremely transparent about the way he acted. Even Flam and Gracies, usually very serious little girls, managed to open up and have fun with him. He was a fun boy, open, and ready to help anyone who needed it. A young man who tried too hard to help others. Whenever a problem appeared, he did whatever he could to support anyone who needed help. And as time went on, he began relaxing a bit more. Except for the training and studies with Reinhard, where he continued to put enormous effort into improving. But strangely enough, the time the two spent together was actually pleasant. Subaru, I think. I should talk to Reinhard a bit. He's worked so hard these last days that feel like months, don't you think? Felt, tell me about it. If there's someone who needs rest, Rain would be the first. Subaru, they should give Reinhard some extra days off for being the Sword Saint, don't you think? Felt, if that's the case, he deserves a whole month to rest after so much work. Sometimes the two of them exchanged conversations like this about the Sword Saint. They wished he didn't have so much work and didn't need to push himself so hard, but Subaru, unfortunately, he's one of the few who can help other people, isn't he? Felt. Subaru. No, I'm not saying there aren't others who can help. There must be. But Reinhard's probably one of the few capable of doing everything and helping anyone who needs it. Felt. Just because he's strong doesn't mean much, you know that, right? He barely understands half of what people say in an everyday conversation. Subaru, I know. Reinhard might not be perfect, but he's definitely the best at what people need. Especially when he's there at the right moment to do what needs to be done. In that sense, people would absolutely want him there to deal with any kind of problem. What? Felt. You have a very weird look on your face. There was no hint of mockery in her voice, nor any attempt to provoke the dark-haired teenager. She spoke seriously, her expression firm, as she got a clearer look at the face of the person in front of her. Subaru's face was now fully visible to the blonde girl. His eyes looked slightly strained with dark circles beneath them, and he seemed to be exerting some kind of unnecessary, excessive effort, thinking too deeply about something in a way she felt was far too much. Felt didn't like seeing that expression on him, just as she didn't like seeing a similar one on Reinhard. Felt, what? Are you dealing with something, big brother? Subaru, dealing with something? No, I'm not dealing with anything, don't worry. Natsuki Subaru is totally fine, erg. Felt, cut it out, kicking him hard in the stomach with all the strength she could muster. Subaru recoiled from the blow delivered by the small girl, strong enough to make him fall back onto the bed, landing on his backside. Her shout stopped him from uttering whatever insult he was about to say. Though he wanted to throw every curse he learned in Japan at her, he held back because of the pain. Subaru. How? Erg. Even after training with Reinhard. Erg. Your kicks still hurt, huh? Felt. I train too, you know. Subaru. You train with earth dragons to learn how to kick, you little gremlin. Felt. Ha he he. She simply displayed a mischievous grin full of teeth as she watched Subaru's irritated expression after the blow. She hopped up onto the edge of the bed while Subaru, holding his stomach, adjusted himself to sit beside her as comfortably as possible, letting out small grumbles. Felt, "You're dealing with something, big brother." Subaru, "I don't know. I just got kicked right in the mouth of my stomach by someone I can't even hit back unless I want to be executed." Felt, "And you wouldn't hit me anyway." Subaru, "Don't underestimate my abilities. I've trained enough with Reinhard that I could land at least one good hit on you." Felt, "If you want to try your luck, I'm not giving you an opening." Little by little, the two fell back into the same playful mood they had at the beginning of their conversation. Subaru stopped rubbing his stomach. Then he felt a hand rest on his shoulder, making him turn to face the girl whose expression clearly showed her concern. Felt, "Seriously, big brother, what happened?" Subaru, I can't say it. I really can't say one of the things I've wanted to say for a long time." Felt, "If it's like that, then it must be pretty complicated." She lifted her legs into the air and stretched them out, gazing up as she tilted her head back to look at the ceiling, before lowering her gaze to look at him again. Felt, "Is there anything you can say?" Subaru, "Not that I want to, 'cause there are things I do want to say." Felt, Subaru, "If you had the power to help people, really help them in a way only a few could, but to do it, you'd have to sacrifice something very important to you, and maybe important to other people too. I think, would you do it?" Felt. The blonde girl found the question a bit strange. Subaru's expression had shifted into something more somber and serious, the face of someone filled with heavy doubts. Felt, "If it were me? No idea." Subaru, "No idea? What an answer. Your philosophical depth would make several philosophers from where I come from cry. Truly magnificent." Felt, "You think I don't recognize sarcasm?" She gave him a small elbow to the side, making him let out a choked groan from the pain. Felt, "Of course I said no idea. I don't know what I'd have to sacrifice, and if I knew that, then I could give a proper answer. It's like asking the right answer from someone who doesn't know anything." Subaru, "Skiss. Fine shit, fine, damn it. A good argument." Felt, What would you lose in this case?" Subaru, "Time." Felt, "Like, what do you mean?" Subaru, like, you'd be sacrificing the time you spend with the people around you. The good things, the bad things, the happy things, the sad things, all of it too. Somehow, maybe create better moments. Maybe moments far better than the ones you already lived. But on top of that, you'd be helping people going through horrible things they shouldn't have had to face in the first place. All of that, in exchange for all the memories you shared with those people for days, weeks, or an entire life you lived together in such a short time. Everything, with no one but you remembering any of it. As he spoke those words, he placed a hand over his heart, waiting. Not once did that crushing pain strike his chest like it had the times he tried to talk about the power he had possessed since his first day. At least this time he could finally open himself up in a way that didn't reveal the truth of the ability that haunted him, whether he should or shouldn't use it. Felt, "Do you think Rain would use that ability?" Subaru, "You and I both know he would. Reinhard is the kind of guy who'd use that power every chance he got to help people. One of his best traits, and one of the most annoying ones." Felt, yeah, you're right. He'd do it without even hesitating. Because Reinhard is Reinhard, and he thinks the way he believes is best for himself and for everyone. But he can also be an idiot for believing he only has the option to do everything for others and nothing for himself. Don't you think? Subaru, yeah, I think so. Reinhard van Astria, the Sword Saint, someone they both knew to be a kind person. Yet someone so committed to thinking like the Sword Saint that he never seemed to learn how to be a human being who thought of himself more than as a sword to be used for the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of others. That's why sometimes they had to knock some sense into him, to make him see he didn't have to think that way all the time, and why they had to help him realize he could rely on others to do the things he couldn't do alone. Felt, "So if I didn't do something Rain would do, would you think I'm a bad person?" Subaru. No. Honestly, I don't know, but I want to believe that anyone who wouldn't choose what Reinhardt is willing to choose isn't a bad person. Felt. And what if you had to do it? Her gaze locked onto Subaru's unsettling eyes, staring straight into him. His unsettling eyes stared back into Felt's scarlet ones, full of hesitation. Felt, I'm not asking whether you'd do it or not, big brother. I'm asking, would you blame yourself for not doing what Reinhardt would do if you could? Subaru. I would. I'd blame myself. Felt. Of course you would, because you're an idiot just like Reinhardt. The only difference is one wears a stupid knight outfit and the other wears a stupid butler outfit. Subaru. And he's better looking. Felt. Subaru, huh? Subaru thought he heard her mutter something strange, but he let it go when she shook her head and looked at him again. Felt. You don't have to blame yourself, foe. Subaru. What if it were Ram Gigi? His sudden shout cut off Felt's next words. Subaru's expression had turned dark, and he was using every ounce of strength to force the words out. Subaru. If it could save him, would you blame me for letting him die just because I didn't want to lose something important to me? Felt. Subaru. I'm sorry for putting it that way. Really, I'm sorry for saying something so monstrous like that, but when someone important enters the conversation, facing something you think might be recoverable, you can't answer the same way, can you? Felt. I would blame you, 'cause I love Old Man Ram, even if I never say it to his face. Anyone would blame someone for refusing to save a person they love. Would you blame me if I chose not to save your parents? You talk about them so much, so would you blame me if I didn't want to lose the memories I have with you, or with Rain, or with the others? Subaru. No, I wouldn't blame you. Felt. You're lying. Subaru. Of course I am. Admitting it with heavy reluctance, both looked down. Even sitting side by side, staring in the same direction, the two somehow felt distant and yet so close they could almost be one. They remained like that for a moment in that room. Felt. I'd never want to lose the time I spent with you, big brother, even if they called me a monster, or even if it meant being the most selfish person in the world. I don't want to lose everything I lived through with you, or with Reinhardt, or with anyone I've met until now. I don't want to lose the good things we lived, not even the bad ones. I don't want to lose anything, and I don't want to lose anyone. Subaru. I don't either. I don't want to, but what if? Felt. What? Duty? Obligation? People can choose what they think is the duty they must follow. People can choose what obligation they want. Reinhardt isn't obligated to save every single person in the world and fix every problem that shows up. And neither are you. It's not like they were born so you two could solve everything. It's not like they exist because of you. Subaru. Was that it? Was that how the world was supposed to be? Of course, Natsuki Subaru wasn't as powerful as Reinhardt, but maybe he could do something to help people. If he died, if he went back in time, couldn't he stop terrible things from happening? Even if it was just once, even if it was only this once, wouldn't it be right to use this power this time too? Felt. If someone was murdered on the other side of the world, would it be your fault? Would it be your fault if that person died? Be honest. Would it be your fault just because you didn't want to blame yourself or didn't want to sacrifice everything to fix it? We can't fix every horrible thing in the world, big brother. Just like we can't have everything we want. And everyone learns that well in the slums, because everyone there wants food, clothes, water, money. You're not supposed to live to fix everything in the world. Live to fix the problems you can fix, and let others fix the rest. Isn't that what we tell Reinhardt when he tries to do everything alone and we need to knock it into his head that he doesn't have to think that way? But what if he thought like that again in the future? What if his checkpoint always reset to the beginning? Or what if the checkpoint changed and he ended up somewhere where he couldn't fix anything that had already happened? Wouldn't he be abandoning something to greedily try to gain more? What would happen if the world kept moving after he died and returned? He had never really considered that before, since he had died so long ago, that the only thing reminding him his power still existed was the fact that he was living in another world. But was it possible? Was the world continuing even after he died? Or did he have more chances he could use to help people? Or did his power follow some criteria he didn't know about? And when would Subaru stop using it? When would he stop using his power to help others and try to solve every problem? And would he be selfish for doing it or for not doing it? Subaru, so I should only help the ones I can help. Felt, we can all only do what we can do, and let others do what they can do. Subaru, but wouldn't it be contradictory if it was something I or Reinhard could actually do? Felt, maybe. Arg, it's complicated, big brother. She smacked the back of Subaru's head, making him lean forward slightly. Subaru let out a small grunt and settled back into his spot on the bed. Felt, I don't know. I don't know if it would be wrong to not want to protect everyone. Just like I don't know if it would be wrong to sacrifice everything for others just because of some stupid notion of heroism. All I know is that I would choose to live for my own personal desires, and that we have to accept the world as it is. The good things and the bad. And Subaru, And Felt. And we have to keep going with life however we can, whether we like it or not. Her words silenced him again, leaving the dark-haired boy with even more tangled thoughts. Subaru, you. Where did you even get this kind of maturity from, huh? It doesn't make any sense for a brat like you to talk like a grown woman who understands the world. Felt. And you're just a dumb little butler who never worked a day in your life. And you think you're someone who can save the whole world from all evil, when even Rain and the others can't do that either. Subaru. You're right. Subaru looked down at the floor, but in truth he was trying to see where the knife was. The knife he wanted to use to kill himself and try using the power he discovered on his first day in that world, thinking again whether he should try using that ability, when he didn't even know if it would work or if he would go back to the first day or to some other point, if his save point had changed. Even so, he wondered, Subaru, would it be wrong for me to be selfish? For wanting to be selfish and only protect what's within my reach instead of everyone? Could I choose not to use this power to fix everything? The questions bubbled in his mind. How should he act? Should he really do it? For Subaru, it would be so much easier if he could ask for an honest opinion after explaining what he would have to sacrifice in exchange for the memories and time he spent with people. For Subaru, things would be easier if he could confess everything in his heart and explain everything that was happening and ask what he should truly do. And the only answer he had so far, that Reinhard would definitely sacrifice himself to use this ability, but only because, as the Sword Saint, he thought more like a tool meant to protect the kingdom than someone who allowed himself to be selfish, kind, but conditioned. And that Felt, the girl beside him, probably wouldn't use the ability. And if she did, it would be to protect the people she loves, those within her reach, those she was able to save. Why was everything so complicated? Why couldn't he just have an ability that didn't force this choice on him, so he could live normally like everyone else and simply accept the inevitability of what happened? Why was he trapped in this decision? To kill himself, go back in time, and fix the terrible things that had happened? Or not kill himself, not go back, leave things as they were, and simply try to move forward? Use a power that could fix everything by sacrificing something as precious as his time with others since his first day? Or not use it? Subaru. Hey, Felt. Z's. Without him even noticing it happening, Felt had fallen asleep beside him, leaning against his arm, her head resting on his shoulder. He hadn't realized how tired he was either. He was close to falling asleep right there as well. Subaru, after everything we've gone through, so much that there's no way not to feel sleepy. Standing up, he helped Felt lie down on the bed that was supposed to be Subaru's for the night, and he covered her with his blanket so she could sleep peacefully. Bending down, he picked up the knife that had been left there. Stepping away, he walked toward one of the pieces of furniture in the room. Staring at it, he looked once more at his own reflection in the blade. He saw his own eyes, how slightly cold and lifeless they seemed, all because he still wasn't capable of making a decision. He saw the dimmed light in them because he still didn't know what he should do. Opening one of the drawers, he shoved the knife inside, storing it away. Subaru, I guess I can think about killing myself tomorrow, right? Subaru almost wanted to let out a laugh at his own words, but he didn't. He didn't want to laugh about something like that, even if he wished he could find a bit of humor in it. He sat down in one of the chairs in the room near the desk with a mirror. He crossed his arms, and his eyes blinked a few times. And like that, Natsuki Subaru drifted into the world of dreams to face the next day after the conversation he had with Felt. Except for the uncertainty, he actually felt good after talking to her. Part of the pain in his heart had eased, and a warm, comforting feeling settled in, helping him finally get some rest. Felt never had much during her youth in the slums of the capital. One of the few things she did have was her superior agility, combined with her divine protection, which allowed her to run across rooftops in the slums, or even the noble district with ease, granting her every advantage she could want. And that was exactly what she was doing right now. Felt moved across the rooftops as if she were sliding along a path made just for her. Her feet barely touched the surface before launching her into the next jump. Each movement so precise it seemed choreographed with the wind itself. She took a deep breath, feeling the cold air scrape against her face, but none of it slowed her down. In fact, it only made her feel more alive. The wind pulled her blonde hair back as she raced forward, and there was something in that sensation, something that had always been a part of her. It was as if the divine protection didn't just strengthen her, it was an extension of her own will. An invisible, constant push, making her steps too light to be heard, too fast to be seen. She leapt toward the next roof in a way anyone else would call suicidal, but Felt landed with the delicate ease of someone who had done this her whole life because she had. Before the rooftop even had the chance to buckle under a weight that never truly pressed down, she was already back in the air, moving forward. A quick spin mid-air, her weight perfectly controlled, and she landed on the narrow tip of a wooden edge, only to use it as a springboard and continue on, even faster. The sensation was almost like floating, almost like flying. And for a second, it felt as though the wind was trying to catch her, but it never could. Felt smirked. She was always faster. That feeling of freedom, of being as swift and weightless as the very wind that blew and tossed her hair, brought a warmth and peace to her heart every time she ran across those rooftops. Every moment her feet left the tiles, she felt her body disappear, only to propel her forward again to the next rooftop at incredible speed. For Felt, almost no one could be as fast as she was, but she knew that wasn't true. There were many people far beyond the small world view she once had in the slums of the capital. Back when she was just a thief, surviving alongside her grandfather. Living as a criminal had shaped her worldview. Later, when she became a royal candidate, she developed another. Not that it changed the personal ideals she had held since the slums. The expansion of her lifestyle. The shift that came with becoming a candidate and living among nobles, especially for her campaign, helped prepare her to change the way she thought without changing who she really was deep inside her own heart. Complicated, right? But that was how it was, or at least how her big brother said it was. Another person who helped her grow, while still not changing who she truly was her big brother, Subaru, whom she had met on the day she ended up making a deal that allowed her to be revealed as a royal candidate. And he had always been strange. His way of speaking, his way of acting, the way he carried himself, or even the way he dressed. The way he saw the world, the way he saw himself, or the way he saw others. Everything about him, too, Felt was strange. As strange as the sword saint who served her as her knight. Two strange people, yet still incredible. Two confusing people, yet still gentle. Two sad people, yet still kind. They almost seemed to complement each other in the things one couldn't do. Felt could see that clearly. Reinhard never seemed able to fully understand people because of his position, because he lived in a way unlike anyone else due to his overwhelming power. And Subaru also didn't seem able to fully understand people, though in a different way than Reinhard, for reasons she could only guess without truly understanding. Two misfits who still managed to grow because of each other's presence. And she also felt she could grow alongside them to learn. To learn so she wouldn't remain someone with a closed or limited mindset, to grow so she could remember the things she already understood and keep understanding even more about the world. To learn to become better, and not just someone others could humiliate because of her origins in the slums. Honestly, it was a pretty mature mindset she had developed over the years, wasn't it? Had it really been 3 years since that girl left the slums as a candidate? Now that same girl was running across the rooftops again. Felt. Big Brother is never going to let Rain forget that, technically. He kidnapped me. Wearing a mocking grin, she truly enjoyed reminding Reinhard of the same thing Subaru teased him with. Felt had grown since that small girl she once was. She went through her first growth spurt after a year living in the Estrella mansion, finally receiving proper food and care. As people had said, so her body could begin to develop. And she continued to grow as time passed. 3 years later, she was indeed taller than at the beginning, not dramatically taller, but enough for people to notice the difference if they had seen her before and saw her now. Her body had also developed slightly in areas some perverts would consider important in a lady. Even if she didn't have a figure comparable to someone like Priscilla, known for her beauty, Feld truly had become a pretty young woman. Still slim so she could continue moving like the wind, just as she always had when she was younger. And that was exactly what she was doing now, running across the rooftops toward the royal palace, passing over countless people below. Felt followed the entire path without slowing down, leaping from roof to roof, closing in on the palace gates, and only touching the ground when she finally had to start walking. And right ahead of her, standing in her way, were two figures. Reinhard, Feltsama, I hope you enjoyed your walk. Subaru and I have been waiting for you. Subaru, actually, I was hoping you would have run away and we'd have to chase you. It would have saved us from something so boring. Honestly, I'm very disappointed you didn't run away. Felt, I thought about it. But then I imagined you two embarrassing yourselves because I wasn't there, so I considered sneaking in just to watch from afar. But Reinhard would notice me, and then I'd have to participate whether I liked it or not. Subaru, you'd really want us to embarrass ourselves? Sorry, but today is your big day. Reinhard, I must agree with Subaru on this one. Besides, I believe we might actually be able to avoid embarrassing you even if you were expecting it. We could manage it. Felt, damn it. You hanging around Big Brother really ruined the fun of trying to joke with you. Grumbling in deep frustration, the two young men released small, contained laughs at the current complaints of the woman they now served. They promptly prepared to walk together. Reinhard on Felt's right side, Subaru on her left, and Felt between them, walking with her hands behind her head and taking long strides, lifting her legs high. Felt, so, what do you two think? Reinhard, I'm confident in your abilities, Felt's. Some of Felt. And you, Big Brother? Subaru, I think you'll be removed from the position in 3 months. Maybe 1 week. Felt, excuse me, you. Felter tried to kick Subaru's leg, but he dodged thanks to his reflexes, and because he was already used to being attacked like that by the now 17-year-old girl. That led to a chase, with Felt attempting to strike him several times. Subaru had to dodge each blow thrown her way, even though he wasn't particularly at risk of being hurt at this point. Reinhard simply watched them, a little apart yet happy. Despite the hardships they had faced over the years, despite the problems the world had gone through. A bit selfishly, Reinhard found happiness in following those two and having them with him since the very first day they met. Truly, he had been blessed by the world.